My mother replaced me with my stepdad's kids, so I left for good. A 27-year-old man, and this story is about how my relationship with my mom fell apart over the years, starting from when I was a kid. Growing up, I was really close to my mom. My parents divorced when I was 8, and I lived primarily with my dad. But weekends with my mom were the highlight of my week. We'd go hiking, work on little projects around her house, and she'd always remind me how proud she was of me. That's why what happened later hurt so much. Things started to change when I was 13. My mom started dating James, who had 2 kids from his previous marriage, Lucas and Lily. Lucas was 12, and Lily was 10 at the time. At first, I was excited because I thought I'd have more people to hang out with. But when they moved in, everything shifted. James decided to quit his job to focus on Lucas and Lily. My mom, who already worked long hours, had to take on even more overtime to make up for the loss of income. This meant she was around less. And when she was home, most of her attention was on making James and his kids feel comfortable. I tried to adjust, but it became obvious pretty quickly that I wasn't part of their little unit. Family dinners were always about what Lucas and Lily had going on. Lucas played soccer, and Lily was into cheerleading. My own accomplishments, like making the honor roll or winning a writing contest, barely got a nod. The vacations were planned around their schedules, and I started feeling like an afterthought. I remember one summer when I wanted to visit my grandparents, but James insisted we take a trip to the beach because Lucas had never seen the ocean. I guess whose plans got cancelled? High school was when things went from bad to worse. My mom had promised me a college fund. Something she'd been saving for since I was little. It wasn't going to cover everything, but it was supposed to help a lot. Then during my junior year, my dad told me that fund had been used to pay for Lucas' private school tuition. Apparently, Lucas had some trouble adjusting to public school, and James had convinced my mom that she needed a better environment. I didn't hear about this from my mom, by the way. My dad was the one who broke the news. When I confronted my mom, she said Lucas needed it more and assured me we'd figure something out for my college, but that never happened. My dad ended up taking out loans to help me while my mom barely contributed, claiming she was tight on money. It was around this time that my mom missed my high school graduation. Lily had a cheerleading competition the same day, and James convinced her that Lily's event was more important because her whole team was depending on her. I remember sitting in the auditorium looking out at the crowd and not seeing her there. She didn't even call until the next day, and when she did, she acted like it wasn't a big deal. By the time I went to college, I'd stopped visiting my mom's house regularly. Every time I went over, it felt like I was intruding. James would make these passive-aggressive comments about how I was so busy that I didn't have time for family. Dinners were always centered around Lucas and Lily's lives. And any attempts I made to talk about my own experiences were brushed aside. Once, I mentioned struggling with a tough class, and James responded by talking about Lucas' plans to study engineering. It was like I didn't exist. I tried to patch things up a few times. I'd suggest going out for lunch with just my mom, but somehow, James and the kids always ended up tagging along. If I ever brought up how I felt excluded, my mom would tell me I was too sensitive or that I was misinterpreting things. It felt like banging my head against a wall. The resentment built up slowly, but it really hit me when I looked back and realized how many promises my mom had broken. She used to tell me I was her priority, but her actions said otherwise. James had this way of making it clear that I wasn't really part of the family. One Christmas, I got a generic gift card while Lucas and Lily got these elaborate personalized presents. I tried to brush it off, but it stung. Eventually, I stopped trying. Every interaction with my mom felt like a reminder that I was less important than James's kids. She didn't notice how distant I'd become. Or if she did, she didn't care enough to do anything about it. By the time I graduated college, our relationship was barely hanging on by a thread. Looking back, I think the hardest part wasn't losing the relationship I had with my mom, it was realizing that she didn't see anything wrong with how things had turned out. She genuinely believed she was being fair even when her actions showed otherwise, and James, he always made sure I knew where I stood in their family on the outside looking in. This was just the beginning of the story. Things got even messier in the years that followed, but I'll get to that in the next update. Update 1. After college, my relationship with my mom had already dwindled to the occasional text or holiday card, but I was still holding on to a sliver of hope that things could change. That hope took a major hit when I found out about her 50th birthday party through photos on social media. It wasn't just a casual dinner or something low-key. It was a huge extravagant event complete with decorations, catered food, and what looked like a live band.